As all of you know by my name, I'm Muslim. So every important thing in a Muslim's life is always begins in the name of God. So I will say, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. I bear witness there is no God but Allah, and that Muhammad is his prophet. And Muslims, and most of you know this greeting. Some of you don't want to say it, but Assalamu alaikum. For the brothers and sisters who are here, who belong to the Christian faith or know the Christian faith, you know, Jesus greeted his disciples in peace. And being that you are advocates of peace, then you should always greet each other in a good word of peace. Now, I only have a few minutes, and I know for Muslims who are very long-winded, we got a whole lot to say. It's quite difficult. Brevity is not one of our attributes, but I'm going to try very hard to make this quick and go to the point. First, I want to thank Cynthia McKinney, because little did she know when we made that trip in January to Libya, and Brother Gaddafi had invited us on a forum that he was creating for the migrants, mainly African migrants in Europe, which is a tremendous problem. Gaddafi went to Brussels. They and the Italians, they promised him $6 billion, excuse me, if he could help solve the migrant problem that they were having in Europe, and being that many of them came to Libya because Libya's open border policy during the days of the sanctions. And Gaddafi said he needed 16 billion, not 6. But it was a great problem. We went there on the heels of that, and at that conference, Gaddafi wanted to pour into the African Union another $90 billion. And so that, as my brother just said, so that North Africa would not be swallowed up into Europe. Europe wanted to subsume North Africa. And I've been going to Libya for a long time. As a matter of fact, my relationship with Brother Gaddafi has been solid since we first went there in 1977. And in all relationships, you have some bumps and some ups and downs, but Gaddafi has been consistent. And for those who are Muslims in the audience or from the Arab world, Gaddafi uses the term, you know, you Meccans best know your roots. In your struggle, you know best what to do, and that has been his position. And what hurts me today, as we get ready to start our fast of Ramadan, Ramadan is a time of joy for Muslims. We don't fast with long faces and look hungry, but it's a challenge to each one of us as we go into it. We love to see our children, when they become of age, that they can fast. And to show the disrespect for the Muslim world, will they stop bombing in Libya during Ramadan and say this is the holy time for all of them, regardless of what side you're on. But all you have to do is look at the history of America in the West. I don't care what you thought about Saddam Hussein. If you go through the streets of Baghdad tomorrow morning with a microphone and ask the Iraqis, are you better off now than you were under Saddam Hussein? I guarantee you to the letter, they said, I hated it, but I had security, I had peace. My children went to school, I could go to the hospital, and people were not killed in the streets every day. But when they killed Saddam Hussein, they killed him on the Muslim Eid under the directions of the United States of America. It wasn't the Iraqi leaders who said we're going to hang him on the morning of Eid. It wasn't the Iraqi leaders who let the opposition in to take pictures of him. And you could have differences with him. You could have called him whatever you wanted, but the whole pretext of what they did in Iraq was an absolute lie given to the United Nations by a black man. So, there are two important words in the Arabic language. One is mustaqbal, the future. And when I saw those young students come up here, they represent the future. We're old war horses, starting with the Vietnam War, which was an unholy war that we lost 58,000 innocent young Americans. And those who made it out of the war became drug addicts, the homeless. If you comb the homeless right now. Many of them are veterans from Vietnam. And it was all based on a lie and this whole premise of building the American empire. And what I would humbly recommend to our intelligence president, Barack Obama, he needs to read The Empire Has No Clothes, a book that's on the market, and he needs to read Washington Rules and look at the words of Dwight D. Eisenhower in that book when he was going out of office. And he warned the American people and the leadership, be careful of the military-industrial complex, because their idea is that America must remain in perpetual war, and what you see in Libya today is a part of that war. So people ask me, Akbar, do you and Louis Farrakhan defend Muammar Gaddafi because he gave you some money? We defend Muammar Gaddafi on a principle. Yes, he helped the Nation of Islam. Yes, he helped Minister Farrakhan. But there's a principle involved here. And based on what we have seen in the past, look at poor Colin Powell, a soldier doing what his boss ordered, went before the world at the UN and lied so that we could go into Iraq. We have lost 6,000 soldiers, even though they say 4,580, 6,000 soldiers, because those that die after they're wounded, they don't count those. And look at the damage done to these young men and women. Look at their minds. Look at them coming home shooting their wives. Look at how many are on drugs. Look at what's happening at the Veterans Administration. And should we stand by and watch this happen again? This is why Barack, knowing an election is coming up, saying no ground troops. But he's doing even worse damage because he went in there based on a lie, I want to save some civilians. So I'm just going to say, and I know that we have some brothers and sisters who are with the Libyan opposition, the rebels who have, America has bombed your country and taken sides in a civil war. But when Muammar Gaddafi turned towards Africa, and you have to know that history, I don't have time to do it tonight, but when the sanctions were on him, and the Arab League, and nobody would stand up to the UN or America, accusing him in the Pan Am, accusing him in the Bella Disco in Germany, and nobody would stand for him, he said, I'm an African, and he turned to the African leaders. And the African leaders were hurting because the aid that was coming from a country at that time of 5 million people helped each African country, and now he was strapped down under these sanctions that made Libya lose $30 billion and countless lives on that highway driving from Tripoli to Jerba or taking an overnight ship to Malta. And so when the African leaders said that if they don't lift the sanctions, we will break the sanctions and fly into Sirte and tell Muammar Gaddafi that we are with him against the US and UN imposed sanctions on Libya. And then he turned his attention to the African countries and began to support them. The Western world didn't want this. So when Barack Obama, if he's an honest broker and not a warmonger, Barack Obama would have said to the American people that I'm going to lead the charge in invading Libya. And what it's going to happen to you, you're going to pay $5 a gallon for gas. I'm going to spend $10 million a day supporting this effort after I pull our planes out. And in an economy that is in shambles, I'm going to spend this kind of money in order to support a war, not to help the civilians in Benghazi, but in order that we can get those rich oil fields, in order that we can give the Zionist state of Israel the water that they will need in the next 50 years that is found under the desert of Libya and Darfur. And so therefore, in order to make this happen, we got to get rid of Muammar Gaddafi because he's not a ball player. We thought we could cultivate him and bring him in, but he wouldn't play ball. So according to John Perkins in The Economic Hitman, if they don't play ball, you bring out the gun. And that's what they have done on Muammar Gaddafi. So in my conclusion, the media has shaped how you view Libya. That's why some of you were a little confused whether I should get involved with an anti-war movement for Muammar Gaddafi. He's a brutal dictator, been in power 42 years, and they don't have democracy there. See, you were going back and forth. You wavered because you were victim of the very media that you criticize. This here corporate control media shapes how you see the world and even how you see yourself. Now, if the media wanted to get the other side, if the media wanted to see, they know that Cynthia McKinney went to Libya. Why weren't they all over top of her? What did you find? What did you see in Tripoli? We want to report it to the American people. They were not there at all. But what has come out of this? It has started what my brother said, a movement. Ramsey Clark is 83 years old. Ramsey Clark just left, 83 years old. God has blessed him that his mind is still sharp. But Cynthia, how you and him tie in together, both of you have been inside. You have seen what the government does and does not do. You have seen how the media shapes a picture of an individual. But what has come out of this has brought us together. I'm a member of the Nation of Islam. And many times, many people didn't want to associate with us. The white left, the black progressives, and so forth. We've come together on an issue that Barack, in his wildest dream, never thought that Libya would be his stone of stumbling and that Libya would galvanize a movement against the madness that's going on in Washington. So, don't stop. I want to close with this. Cynthia McKinney called a press conference and a demonstration in front of the office of Representative John Lewis in Georgia. I got out of my bed, I got on a plane, and I flew down there to meet with Cynthia. And we had a press conference, and then John Lewis, he learned a lesson from John F. Kennedy when the March on Washington under King was taking place. Him and Robert Kennedy opposed it, but when they saw that the momentum was building up, they said, well, let's join it and control it, okay? So what Cynthia did, we had that press conference. And then John Lewis sent his chief of staff down and invited us all upstairs to a conference room. And we sat down and we spoke to him. And in the meeting, what came out, and I'm sharing this with the peace movement, the progressives, the white left and black, the Muslims, is that he said that there's two things respected. You know, three things. Your ability to raise money, and we're going to do that tonight, Cynthia, to keep you on the road so you can keep bringing this message across America and galvanizing people around this situation. Your ability to turn out people in the streets and your votes. That's what politicians do. So how do you turn out the people in the street? They may not. Corporate media, NBC, ABC, CNN, BBC, none of them are here covering this. But don't worry, they're listening. And because you don't go home tonight and see it on the 6 o'clock news, don't become defeated. They're not important. That's not important. They're listening and they're knowing what you're doing, what you're doing right now, so keep the momentum going. So John Lewis gave us those words. Out of all that he said that afternoon, the thing that he said they respect when you can turn people out in the street, call meetings like this, and attack what you know is wrong about the government of the United States, and try to hope to correct their course, get them on the right course. Thank you, may God bless you.